my husband's mom, nearly culled my child to prove my parenting was wrong, so I kicked her to the curb. A year later, she tried to get my daughter removed from school behind my back. I loved everything about my husband, other than his mother. The first time I met her was when she came up to me after our wedding reception. Her dress was an off-white sequined borderline ball gown. "You'll never know him as well as I do," was the first thing she said to me. I swear I thought she was pranking me, but that's when her eyes narrowed and she glared at me like I had just asked to borrow money or something. "Well, I'm sure I'll get to know Zach in my own way." My tone was cheery, just trying to keep the mood up, but she didn't respond and just walked over to get ready to eat her meal. And I guess my husband noticed what was going on, because he came over and asked if I wanted to have her kicked out. I shook my head and insisted that we would get along eventually. You see, my parents had me when they were in their early 40s and had already died of old age, so I was stubborn that our future daughter should have a grandmother. I had no idea she was planning on unaliving our future daughter. A year later, our baby Nyla was born. We were lucky enough that my husband was able to fully support me while I became a stay-at-home mom and took care of her. We both loved her so much and would do anything to keep her safe. Fast forward 4 years later to Nyla's 4th birthday party. We were writing out the invitations with pink Crayola crayons together, and once we were done inviting her whole class, I asked her if there was anyone else she wanted to come. "Big mommy, big mommy, big mommy," she exclaimed with full excitement. I pinched the bridge of my nose, because by big mommy, she meant her grandmother, aka my mill. And up until this point, she hadn't talked to her other than through FaceTime. And I know what I said before about the whole grandparent thing, but I was extremely worried, because during many of our FaceTime calls, Nyla would beg me to give her peanut butter, and she's deathly allergic, so obviously I would say no. But my MIL would always chime in and say, "You're raising her to be too fragile. Give the girl what she wants." Her response always made Nyla think that I was being unreasonable, but I didn't want to be a bad mother, so I gave in and invited her. On the day my mother-in-law showed up with a homemade birthday cake, snacks, and cupcakes. At first I was touched. I really thought my MIL was trying to make amends. Boy, was I wrong. Because the second I let her in, I noticed that right there, hidden in the bag of snacks, was a share-size pack of Reese's cups. I gently maneuvered her back into the front garden. "What is in this birthday cake?" My tone was threatening. Just like, vanilla." I grabbed it from her and smelled it. Yep, it was peanut butter. "You can either leave all your BS in the car and come inside without it, or drive home." She tried to push past me, thinking I wasn't serious, but I shoved her away. Eventually, she retreated to her car and returned empty-handed. I would have told my husband about it, but the last thing I wanted was for the day to become about my mother-in-law instead of Nyla, so I settled for keeping a close eye on her while making sure she enjoyed the party. The rest of the party was pretty smooth sailing. Pink wrapping paper covered the floor, kids bought music playing, party hats, you know the drill. It wasn't until the end that my mother-in-law burned my entire life to the ground, because that's when Nyla started crying. TBH, at first I thought she just wanted attention, so I let all her friends hug her and ask if she was okay. But after just 30 seconds, she was coughing hard, like really hard. The skin turned red, and she was scratching at her throat. "Sarah," my name. "What did you do?" My mother-in-law screamed like a banshee. I completely ignored her and just focused on dialing 911 with tears in my eyes. Luckily, the paramedics were able to give her a full recovery, because the cause was simple. Someone had given Nyla peanuts. The entire class of moms stared at me while the paramedics interrogated me about whether or not I was neglectful. In the end, they concluded I was a good mom, and they left us alone. But it was still enough to plant the seed that I was unfit to parent. That night, my husband and I were removed from the parent group chat on WhatsApp. My phone was bombarded with texts from parents informing me that they didn't want their child anywhere near my home. It was so overwhelming that I spent the entire night crying into my husband's arms. I really felt like I had let Nyla down. My husband blocked his mom on everything and promised we would never see her again. This calmed me down, but not for long, because the next morning we woke up to a knock at the door. It was CPS. The social worker had tattoos covering her arms, and her face was filled to the brim with Botox. She didn't even say anything, just shoved past me and started opening all of my cupboards. "OMG, what the actual F is this?" she screamed when she spotted a jar of peanut butter. It was at the very top, somewhere Nyla wouldn't be able to reach. "Sarah was right. Your child is better off with her." I buried my face in my hands. "It's my husband's. It's kept where Nyla can't reach it, and I never touch it without washing my hands thoroughly afterward," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. She raised an eyebrow and wrote something down. "And yet your daughter had an allergic reaction yesterday?" "Yes, at her birthday party. We believe someone gave her something with peanuts in it." "Someone? Or you?" she asked, her pen hovering over the paper. I felt my blood pressure rising. I would never give my daughter something that could cull her. She spent another 20 minutes looking through our medicine cabinet, checking expiration dates on everything, and even opening our washing machine to inspect it. She kept making these judgmental little noises under her breath, clicking her tongue and sighing dramatically. "Is this how you normally keep your home?" she asked, pointing to a single toy on the living room floor, a small stuffed unicorn that Nyla loved to carry everywhere. "Yes," We let our daughter play with her toys, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel my nails digging into my palms. She wrote something down with a dramatic sigh. Finally, she handed me a card with her contact information, the edges slightly bent. I'll be filing my report. We'll be in touch about next steps. In the meantime, I suggest you think hard about whether this environment is really suitable for a child with special medical needs. After she left, I called Zach at work. He came home immediately, his tie loosened and his face pale with worry, and we sat down to figure out what was happening. We realized his mother must have called CPS using her own name to make it seem like a concerned third party was reporting us. She's trying to take Nyla from us, I said, my voice breaking. Over my dead body, Zach replied, pulling out his phone to call a lawyer, his knuckles white as he gripped the device. That night, we couldn't sleep. We kept checking on Nyla, making sure she was breathing okay after the allergic reaction. I kept replaying the birthday party in my head, trying to figure out when someone could have given her peanuts. The only person with access to peanut products was my mother-in-law. The next day, I got a text from one of the moms who had been at the party. Just wanted to let you know, I saw your MIL giving Nyla something from her purse when you were cutting the cake. Thought you should know. My hands started shaking so bad I dropped my phone. She had actually done it. She had deliberately given Nyla something with peanuts in it, knowing it could cull her. What kind of monster does that to their own granddaughter? I showed Zach the text, and he went completely white. She could have culled her, he whispered. My own mother could have culled our daughter. We spent the rest of the day documenting everything. The texts from the other mom, the CPS visit, the history of my mother-in-law's comments about Nyla's allergy. We took photos of how we stored the peanut butter safely, and I even recorded a video explaining our allergy protocols. Zach called our lawyer again, who advised us to gather as much evidence as possible, but I had this sinking feeling in my stomach. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning of whatever twisted plan my mother-in-law had cooked up, and somehow, she had managed to turn everyone against us in the process. As I looked at Nyla sleeping peacefully that night, her small chest rising and falling, I made a silent promise that I would protect her at all costs, even if it meant fighting the whole world. I woke up the next morning with my eyes swollen from crying. Zach had already gotten up and was making breakfast for Nyla. I could hear her giggling in the kitchen as he pretended to be a robot flipping pancakes. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then I remembered the CPS visit and my stomach dropped. We need a plan, I said to Zach once Nyla was distracted with her favorite cartoon. Your mom is trying to take our daughter. Zach nodded, his jaw tight. I called the lawyer again this morning. He says we need to document everything and file a formal complaint about that CPS worker. Her investigation was completely unprofessional. I agreed and spent the morning writing down everything I could remember about the visit, the way she pushed past me without introducing herself properly, how she ignored all the safety measures we had in place, the snide comments about my housekeeping. When I finished, I had 3 pages of notes. That afternoon, Zach filed a complaint about the CPS worker's behavior. The person on the phone sounded bored and told us they'd look into it. I didn't have much hope anything would come of it. We need to be proactive, I told Zach that night after we put Nyla to bed. I don't trust that CPS worker, and I definitely don't trust your mom. The next day, I ordered security cameras for inside our house. Nothing creepy, just one for the living room, kitchen, and Nyla's playroom. I wanted documentation of how we actually parented, not whatever twisted version Linda was telling people. I also started keeping a detailed log of everything we did with Nyla, what she ate, activities we did, who she talked to. It felt paranoid, but I needed to have proof we were good parents if things escalated. 3 days after the CPS visit, I took Nyla to preschool. The teacher, Miss Amber, who usually greeted us with a warm smile, barely looked at me. When I tried to chat with another mom I was friendly with, she suddenly remembered she had to make a phone call. Mommy, why is everyone being weird? Nyla asked, her big brown eyes looking up at me. I knelt down and straightened her little backpack. Sometimes grown-ups just have a lot on their minds, sweetie. When I picked her up that afternoon, Miss Amber handed me a note. This was in Nyla's cubby. I didn't see who left it. The note was typed on plain white paper. Real moms protect their kids. L. My hands started shaking. I showed Zach when I got home, and he immediately called the school to ask about their visitor policy. Anyone could have walked in and left that, he said, pacing our living room. This is completely unacceptable. The school director apologized and promised to tighten security, but the damage was done. Linda had found a way to get to us through Nyla's school. That weekend, we took Nyla to the park to try and give her some normalcy. She was running around the playground when I noticed a familiar car parked across the street. It was Linda's silver Lexus. I grabbed Nyla and pointed it out to Zach. She's watching us, I whispered, holding Nyla close. Zach marched toward the car, but it pulled away before he got close. When we got home, there was a voicemail on our landline. Just checking on my grandbaby, Linda's voice oozed fake sweetness. Since you won't let me see her, I have to make sure she's okay from a distance. That playground looks dangerous. All those germs and rough children. CPS might be interested in your negligent parenting choices. Zach deleted the message, his face red with anger. She's unbelievable. I'm calling the lawyer again tomorrow. The next week was relatively quiet, which made me even more nervous. It felt like Linda was planning something bigger. I was right. On Wednesday, I got a call from Nyla's school during nap time. Mrs. Thompson, there was an incident today we need to discuss. My heart raced as I drove to the school. The director met me in her office, looking looking uncomfortable. "Someone called pretending to be you," she explained. "They said Nyla needed to be picked up early for a surprise trip. Luckily, our receptionist thought the voice sounded off and called your cell to confirm." I felt sick. "Someone tried to take my daughter? We didn't see who made the call," the director said. "And unfortunately, the security camera outside the office malfunctioned today." I didn't believe in coincidences. This had Linda written all over it. "We're concerned about having Nyla here," the director continued. "This situation seems to be escalating, and we need to consider the safety of all our students." I understood what she wasn't saying. They wanted Nyla gone. The liability was too great. That night, Zach and I decided to pull Nyla from preschool. He arranged to work from home 3 days a week, and I would homeschool her for now. It broke my heart to take away her friends and routine, but her safety came first. The following Monday, I took Nyla to a different playground, one across town where nobody knew us. She was playing in the sandbox when a woman approached me. "Are you Sarah?" she asked, looking nervous. "Yes, I'm Sarah," I replied, immediately on guard. "Oh," she looked confused. "I got an email about a dangerous mother at this park. It had your picture. Said you give your kid peanuts even though she's allergic." I felt like I'd been punched. "That's completely false. Who sent this email?" "Some local mom group," she shrugged. "I don't know the person who sent it. Just wanted to check." She walked away, but I noticed other parents watching me, whispering. I grabbed Nyla and left, tears stinging my eyes. When I got home, I searched local mom groups on Facebook. Sure enough, there was a post warning about me, including a blurry photo taken from a distance. It showed me standing in my kitchen, and you could just make out a jar on the top shelf that looked like peanut butter. The post claimed I was under CPS investigation for endangering my allergic child. "She's turning everyone against us," I told Zach that night. "She's isolating us from any support system." Zach looked defeated. I never thought my own mother would do something like this. The next day, Nyla was invited to a birthday party by one of her former classmates. I was surprised but happy she wasn't being completely ostracized. I RSVP'd yes immediately. 2 days before the party, the mom called to uninvite us. "I'm sorry, but we've heard some concerning things," she said awkwardly. "I think it's best if Nyla doesn't come." "What concerning things?" I demanded. "I got a voicemail from someone who says they're close to your family. They mentioned child endangerment and CPS involvement. I can't risk having that around the other children." I hung up without responding. Nyla was devastated when I told her she couldn't go to the party. She didn't understand why her friends didn't want to play with her anymore. It broke my heart. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the CPS worker and how quickly she'd sided with Linda. I decided to do some digging. I found her professional profile online and looked at her social media connections. To my surprise, I discovered that she had recently connected with Linda on a professional networking site. They weren't close friends, but they were definitely in the same extended social circle. "There's a connection between them," I told Zach, showing him my phone. "It's not direct, but they know some of the same people. This could explain her bias during the investigation." Zach looked concerned. "This is a potential conflict of interest. The CPS worker should have disclosed this connection and possibly recused herself." I created a fake social media account and did some more investigating. Through careful observation of their public interactions, I found evidence that the CPS worker had mentioned working on a case that was referred to her by someone in her network who was concerned about a child's welfare. I took screenshots of everything. The next morning, we woke up to the sound of something hitting our front door. When Zach opened it, he found our door and porch covered in egg. Our neighbor across the street, an elderly man named Mr. Peterson, was watering his lawn. "You folks had a visitor last night," he called out. "Silver car, older lady, drove by real slow around 2 a.m., then something flew at your door." Zach thanked him and came back inside, his face grim. "That's it. I'm going to confront her directly." I was worried about Zach facing Linda alone, but he insisted. He drove to her house while I stayed home with Nyla, anxiously waiting for updates. When he came back 3 hours later, he looked exhausted. "She denied everything," he said, collapsing onto the couch. "Cried and said we're alienating her from her granddaughter. Said she's filing for grandparent visitation rights through the court." "Can she do that?" I asked, panicking. "Our lawyer says she can try, but it's usually only granted in cases where the grandparent had an established relationship with the child, or if one parent is deceased. Neither applies here." I felt slightly relieved, but still uneasy. Linda was escalating her tactics, and I was worried about what she might do next. The following week, we received official notice that Linda had indeed filed for grandparent visitation rights. Her petition cited the peanut incident as evidence I was an unfit mother, mentioned the CPS involvement, and claimed Nyla's removal from school was an attempt to isolate her from outside support. "This is insane," I said, reading through the paperwork. "She's the one who gave Nyla peanuts. She's the one who called CPS. She's twisting everything around." Our lawyer advised us to gather as much evidence as possible before the hearing. We collected statements from our pediatrician about Nyla's allergy and our careful management of it. We got a letter from Zach's workplace confirming he was working from home to help with Nyla's education. We printed out the screenshots of the CPS worker's connection to Linda. The day before our court date, I was helping Nyla clean up her crayons when I noticed a drawing she'd made. It showed a tall figure labeled Big Mommy holding a bottle with magic drink written on it. Next to it was a smaller figure labeled Me with tears coming down her face. "Nyla, sweetie, what's this picture about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Nyla looked up from her coloring. "Big Mommy said she has a magic drink drink that will make me not allergic to peanuts anymore, but it tastes yucky and makes my tummy hurt. I felt ice in my veins. When did Big Mommy tell you this? When she came to my school for lunch, Nyla said, already losing interest in the conversation and reaching for another crayon. She came to your school? I asked, trying not to sound as panicked as I felt. Uh-huh. She said it was our secret. I immediately called Zach, who came home early from work. We sat down with Nyla together and gently asked her more about these visits. Apparently, Linda had somehow been getting into the school during lunch periods, claiming to be on the approved pickup list. She'd been telling Nyla that I was keeping her sick on purpose, and that her magic drink would cure her. Did you ever drink the magic drink? Zach asked, his voice shaking slightly. Nyla shook her head. It smelled like the bad butter, the one that makes me get owies on my skin, peanut butter. Linda had been trying to give Nyla peanut products, telling her it would cure her allergy. I felt physically ill. We called our lawyer immediately and added this new information to our case. He suggested we record any future interactions with Linda, which was legal in our state as long as one party consented to the recording. The next day was our court date. Linda showed up in a conservative navy dress, looking every bit the concerned grandmother. She had brought photo albums of Zach as a child and spoke tearfully about wanting the same close relationship with Nyla. She claimed I was unstable, possibly suffering from postpartum depression even years after Nyla's birth, and that I was using the peanut allergy to control everyone around me. I only brought peanut butter to test if the allergy was real, she told the judge, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. So many mothers these days invent allergies for attention. I was concerned for my granddaughter's development. Our lawyer presented our evidence, the pediatrician's confirmation of the severe allergy, the screenshots showing Linda's connection to the CPS worker, statements from neighbors about the egging incident, and Nyla's disturbing drawing. The judge seemed concerned but didn't make an immediate decision. Instead, he ordered a temporary arrangement. Linda would get supervised visitation once a week, with a court-appointed supervisor present at all times. I was devastated but tried to stay positive. At least there would be someone watching her every move. The first visit was scheduled for the following Saturday. The supervisor, a woman named Carla, seemed professional and took her job seriously. Linda was on her best behavior, bringing appropriate gifts for Nyla and playing the role of doting grandmother perfectly. But I noticed how she kept telling Nyla that mommy's rules are too strict and grandma knows best. After the visit, Carla seemed charmed by Linda. She clearly loves her granddaughter, she told me. I don't see any reason for concern. This pattern continued for 3 more weeks. Linda would act perfect during the visits, while subtly undermining me to both Nyla and the supervisor. After the 4th visit, Carla submitted a report suggesting the supervision requirement be relaxed. I was at my breaking point. Linda was winning, and I felt powerless to stop her. That night, after putting Nyla to bed, I sat down with all of Nyla's recent drawings. There were more pictures of Big Mommy with the magic drink. In one, Nyla had drawn herself with spots all over her body, labeled after drink. I realized Linda was still trying to convince Nyla to drink something with peanuts in it. She was playing the long game, gain visitation rights, get the supervision removed, and then cure Nyla's allergy by exposing her to the very thing that could cull her. I knew I needed more concrete evidence than children's drawings, so I came up with a plan. The next time Linda dropped Nyla off after a visit, I would record our interaction and try to get her to reveal her true intentions. The opportunity came the following weekend. As Linda was saying goodbye to Nyla, I casually mentioned that Nyla had been talking about a magic drink. Oh, that's just a little game we play, Linda said with a dismissive wave. Kids and their imagination. I waited until Nyla was inside with Zach before continuing. She says you told her it would cure her peanut allergy. Linda's fake smile dropped. Well, maybe if you weren't so neurotic about every little thing, she wouldn't even have allergies. Children develop these things because their mothers are overprotective. I kept my phone recording in my pocket as I replied, allergies don't work that way. Exposure to peanuts could cull her. Linda rolled her eyes. Please, one day you'll thank me for fixing your child. My Zach never had any of these special needs. I raised him to be strong. By giving her something she's deathly allergic to? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Sometimes children need to build up tolerance, she said, her voice taking on a lecturing tone. All this coddling is why kids today are so weak. If you'd let me spend more time with her without your interference, I could help her overcome this so-called allergy. I had what I needed. I ended the conversation and went inside, my hands shaking as I played the recording for Zach. His face went from shock to rage to determination. We're ending this now, he said, calling our lawyer. With the recording, Nyla's drawings, and our previous evidence, we filed for an emergency hearing to revoke Linda's visitation rights. The judge listened to the recording and looked at the drawings, his expression growing more concerned by the minute. Mrs. Zachariah, he addressed Linda directly, are you telling this court that you believe you can cure your granddaughter's medically documented severe allergy by exposing her to the allergen? Linda tried to backtrack, claiming she was misunderstood, but the damage was done. The judge immediately suspended all visitation and ordered a full psychological evaluation before any further contact would be considered. As we left the courthouse, Linda followed us to the parking lot, screaming that we were keeping her from her rights as a grandmother. Several people stopped to watch the scene unfold, including one of the moms from Nyla's old preschool. I saw the recognition in her eyes as she witnessed Linda's unhinged behavior. The next day, that same mom texted me, I think I I owe you an apology. I believed some things I heard about you that I now realize weren't true. It was a small victory, but it felt huge after weeks of being isolated and vilified. Slowly, as word spread about Linda's behavior and the court's decision, other parents reached out too. The tide was beginning to turn. We still had a long road ahead. Linda wasn't giving up easily, and we knew we needed to stay vigilant. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like we might actually win this battle. Nyla was safe for now, and we had proof of what Linda had been trying to do. That night, as I tucked Nyla into bed, she asked me a question that broke my heart. "Mommy, is Big Mommy mad at me because I'm broken?" I held her close, fighting back tears. "You are not broken, sweetie. You are perfect exactly as you are. Big Mommy is confused about some things, and that's why she can't visit right now. Will she get unconfused?" Nyla asked, her eyes already drooping with sleep. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but what I do know is that Daddy and I will always keep you safe. That's our most important job." As I watched her drift off to sleep, I made another silent promise. Not only would I protect her from harm, but I would also protect her from ever feeling like she was broken or wrong because of her allergy. And I would make sure Linda never had the chance to make her feel that way again. The next morning, I woke up feeling more determined than ever. This wasn't just about keeping Linda away from Nyla anymore. It was about making sure she understood that she would never be able to manipulate or harm our family again. We needed to be proactive, not just reactive. I started by calling Nyla's old preschool and explaining the situation in full. The director was horrified to learn that Linda had somehow been getting in during lunch periods. They immediately reviewed their security procedures and discovered that Linda had been claiming to be me, using my ID number from their system. They promised to implement photo verification for all visitors going forward. Then I reached out to the parents who had contacted me after witnessing Linda's courthouse meltdown. They were surprisingly supportive now that they knew the truth. One mom even admitted that she had received multiple anonymous emails about me, all coming from the same address, which turned out to be Linda's email with a slight variation. "She created a whole fake identity to spread rumors about you," the mom told me, sounding embarrassed for having believed it. I should have questioned it more. With each person I spoke to, the web of Linda's deception became clearer. She had been systematically working to isolate us from any support system, all while positioning herself as Nyla's savior. It was calculated and terrifying. But now that people knew the truth, Linda's power was diminishing, and I was determined to keep it that way. The next few days were weirdly quiet. No calls from Linda, no strange cars driving by our house, nothing. It made me super nervous, like when you're watching a horror movie and the music stops right before something jumps out. I kept checking our security cameras obsessively and made sure Nyla was never alone, not even for a minute. "Maybe she finally got the message," Zach said one night after we put Nyla to bed. He was scrolling through his work emails, trying to catch up on everything he'd missed while dealing with his mom's craziness. I shook my head. "I don't think so. This doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like regrouping." I was right. 3 days later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Thought you should see this. Linda's been telling everyone you're mentally unstable." There was a screenshot attached of a Facebook post in a private local mom group. Linda had created a whole fake profile under the name Sarah's Concerned Friend and was sharing all these made-up stories about me having episodes and dangerous behavior around Nyla. I showed Zach, and he immediately called our lawyer. "Can we get a restraining order based on online harassment?" he asked, pacing around our kitchen. The lawyer said we needed more direct evidence that it was actually Linda behind the account. So I made a plan. I created my own fake profile and joined the mom group. Then I sent a private message to Sarah's Concerned Friend, saying I had some information about the Thompson family that might be useful. Linda took the bait immediately. "I'm actually Nyla's grandmother," she wrote back. "I've been trying to protect her from her unstable mother. What information do you have?" I took screenshots of everything and sent them to our lawyer. He filed for an emergency restraining order the next day. The judge granted it temporarily, pending a full hearing in 2 weeks. I felt like I could breathe a little easier with the restraining order in place, but I was still on edge. Linda had proven she didn't respect boundaries, legal or otherwise. I doubled down on our security measures, adding motion sensor lights outside and making sure all our windows and doors were locked at all times. A week later, I took Nyla to the grocery store. We were in the cereal aisle when I heard someone call my name. I turned around and saw Catherine, one of the moms from Nyla's old preschool. My first instinct was to grab Nyla and walk away, but Catherine looked genuinely apologetic. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about everything," she said, fidgeting with her shopping list. "I should have talked to you directly instead of believing rumors." I nodded, still cautious. "It's been a really hard time for us." "I bet," she said. "Look, there's something you should know. Linda came to our monthly book club last week. She didn't know I was friends with Megan, who saw her meltdown at the courthouse. She was telling everyone you've been diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy, and that's why you're making up Nyla's allergy." My blood ran cold. "That's completely false." "I know," Catherine said quickly. "Megan called her out on it and Linda went ballistic. Started screaming about how everyone was against her and how she was going to save Nyla one way or another. It was scary, honestly." I thanked Catherine for telling me and hurried through the rest of our shopping. As soon as we got home, I told Zach what happened. He called the lawyer again to update him on this new development. The day of our restraining order hearing arrived. I was a nervous wreck, checking and double-checking that we had all our evidence organized. We had the screenshots of Linda's fake profile, statements from from parents who had witnessed her behavior, the recording of her talking about curing Nyla's allergy, and now Catherine's written statement about the book club incident. We arrived at the courthouse early. Our lawyer met us in the lobby, looking confident. "We have a solid case," he assured us. "The judge takes threats to children very seriously." Linda showed up right before the hearing started. She was wearing a conservative gray dress and had her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like she was auditioning for the role of respectable grandmother in a Lifetime movie. Her lawyer was a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit who kept checking his watch. The hearing started with our lawyer presenting our evidence. The judge listened carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When the recording of Linda talking about fixing Nyla's allergy was played, I saw the judge's expression harden. Then it was Linda's turn. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a concerned grandmother who was being alienated from her granddaughter. He claimed I was the unstable one, making up stories about Linda to keep her away from Nyla. "Your Honor, my client has never given her granddaughter peanut products," her lawyer said smoothly. "These allegations are completely fabricated by a mother who is using her daughter's supposed allergy to control everyone around her." I felt Zach tense beside me. The lawyer continued, "We have evidence that Mrs. Thompson has been diagnosed with anxiety and depression in the past. We believe she is projecting her own issues onto her mother-in-law." That was a low blow. I had seen a therapist briefly after Nyla was born for some mild postpartum anxiety. It was completely normal and had nothing to do with my parenting abilities. Our lawyer objected, pointing out that my mental health history was irrelevant and that we had concrete evidence of Linda's dangerous behavior. The judge sustained the objection. Then Linda took the stand. She put on a tearful performance about how much she loved Nyla and how worried she was about her well-being. "I just want what's best for my granddaughter," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I've never tried to harm her. I simply questioned whether her allergy was being managed properly." Our lawyer cross-examined her, bringing up the recording. "Mrs. Zachariah, in your own words, you stated that you wanted to fix your granddaughter by exposing her to peanuts. How do you explain that?" Linda's face hardened for a split second before she composed herself. "I was frustrated and speaking metaphorically. I would never actually give her peanuts. And the magic drink you told her about, the one that would cure her allergy, that was just a game," Linda insisted. "Children love magical thinking." Our lawyer then pulled out a surprise piece of evidence, a receipt from Linda's credit card showing she had purchased peanut butter the day before her supervised visit with Nyla. "Can you explain why you purchased this item when you knew your granddaughter has a life-threatening allergy to it?" Linda looked flustered. "I eat peanut butter myself. It had nothing to do with Nyla. Yet you told Nyla about a magic drink that smelled like the bad butter that gives her always on her skin." "Those are her words, Mrs. Zachariah." Linda's facade finally cracked. "She needs to build up tolerance," she snapped. "All these allergies kids have nowadays are because parents coddle them too much. When I was raising Zach, we didn't have all these special snowflake conditions." The courtroom went silent. Even her lawyer looked shocked at her outburst. The judge called for a brief recess, and Linda's lawyer immediately pulled her aside, speaking to her in harsh whispers. When court resumed, the judge didn't waste any time. "Based on the evidence presented, I am granting a permanent restraining order prohibiting Linda Zachariah from contacting Sarah Thompson, Zachary Thompson, or Nyla Thompson in any way. This includes in person, by phone, email, social media, or through third parties. Mrs. Zachariah is to remain at least 500 feet away from the Thompson family's home, Nyla's school, and any other location where they are present." I felt tears of relief spring to my eyes. The judge continued, "Furthermore, I am ordering Mrs. Zachariah to undergo a psychological evaluation before any reconsideration of this order can take place. This court takes threats to children very seriously, especially when those threats come from family members who should be protecting them." Linda stood up, her face contorted with rage. "This is ridiculous. She's turned my own son against me. She's poisoning my granddaughter against me. Mrs. Zachariah, control yourself or you will be held in contempt," the judge warned. Linda's lawyer grabbed her arm and whispered something to her. She sat down, still fuming. As we left the courthouse, I felt like a massive weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Zach looked relieved but sad. "I never thought it would come to this," he said quietly as we walked to our car. "My own mother. I'm sorry it had to be this way," I told him, squeezing his hand. "I really did try to make it work with her." "I know," he said. "This isn't on you. She made her choices." We picked up Nyla from my friend Anna's house, where she'd been playing during the hearing. She ran to us with a crayon drawing in her hand. "Look what I made," she exclaimed, holding up a picture of our family, just the three of us, standing in front of our house with big smiles. That night, after Nyla was asleep, Zach and I sat down to talk about next steps. "I think we should move," he said. "Not far, just to a different neighborhood, somewhere Linda doesn't know the address." I agreed. "And maybe a new preschool for Nyla too, a fresh start for all of us." Over the next few weeks, we found a house in a nearby town and enrolled Nyla in a new preschool that had excellent security measures and was very accommodating of her allergy. We didn't tell anyone our new address except for a few trusted friends. Moving day was exhausting but exciting. Nyla loved her new pink bedroom, and I loved the bigger kitchen with plenty of counter space for cooking allergy-safe meals. Zach seemed more relaxed than he had been in months. As we were unpacking, our doorbell rang. I froze, immediately thinking of Linda. Zach went to check the security camera we'd installed and relaxed. "It's just our new neighbors," he said. I opened the door store to find a friendly-looking couple with a little boy about Nyla's age. They introduced themselves as David and Rose and their son Bobby. They had brought us a welcome basket with a handwritten note that said, "We heard you have a peanut allergy in the family, so everything in here is nut-free." I almost cried at their thoughtfulness. We invited them in for coffee, and while the kids played, we chatted about the neighborhood. It felt so normal, so drama-free. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying until I felt it begin to melt away. Over the next few months, Nyla thrived in her new environment. She made friends at her new preschool and loved her teacher, Miss Campbell. Her allergy was taken seriously by everyone, and she never had to feel different or broken because of it. We heard through Zach's cousin that Linda had been telling everyone we moved to Alaska to keep Nyla away from her. We decided to let her believe that. The further she thought we were, the better. One day at a local moms group meetup, I met a woman named Christine who had recently moved to the area. As we chatted, she mentioned she used to live in our old town. "Do you know Linda Zachariah?" she asked casually. I tensed up immediately. "Why do you ask?" Christine sighed. "She was banned from seeing my sister's kids years ago. Same kind of stuff. Undermining parenting decisions, ignoring allergies, trying to turn the kids against their mom. I just wondered if you'd had any run-ins with her, living in that area." I was stunned. "She's my mother-in-law," I admitted. "We actually moved here to get away from her." Christine nodded knowingly. "You're not the first. My sister moved to Colorado for the same reason." It was oddly comforting to know we weren't Linda's first targets. It confirmed that none of this was our fault. It was all Linda's issues. But it also made me sad to think about how many families she had hurt with her behavior. 6 months after our move, we celebrated Nyla's 5th birthday at our new house. It was a small party with her new friends, pink balloons everywhere, and a nut-free cake that I made myself. No drama, no emergencies, no Linda. As I watched Nyla laughing and playing with her friends, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had protected her from someone who was supposed to love her, but instead tried to harm her. We had rebuilt our lives in a new community that accepted and supported us. And most importantly, Nyla was happy, healthy, and safe. That night, after all the guests had gone home and Nyla was tucked into bed with her new stuffed unicorn, Zach and I sat on the back porch with glasses of wine. "We did it," I said, clinking my glass against his. "We protected our family." "We sure did," he replied, putting his arm around me, "and we always will." I leaned into his embrace, watching the stars come out in the clear night sky. Linda was out of our lives for good, and our future was brighter than ever.